Okay. Amendment 1 for the 2026 ballot in Missouri. Proposed by Article 4, Section 47C, Missouri Constitution, SJR 1, 2005. The official ballot title: Shall Missouri continue for 10 years the 0.1% sales use tax that is used for soil and water conservation and for state parks and historic sites, and resubmit this tax to voters for approval in 10 years. The measure allows continued contribution of the existing sales and use tax, which generates revenue of approximately $140 million annually. The fair ballot language is: a yes vote will continue for 10 years the 0.1% sales use tax that is used for soil and water conservation for the state parks and historic sites. This will be resubmitted to the voters for approval in 10 years. A no vote will not continue this sales use tax. If passed, this measure will not increase or decrease taxes. Okay. Section 47C of Article 4. Provisions: self-enforcing exceptions not part of general revenue or expense of state, effective and expiration dates. All laws consistent with this amendment shall no longer remain in full force and effect after the effective date of this section. All the provisions of sections 47A, 47B, and 47C shall be self-enforcing, except that the General Assembly shall adjust brackets for the collection of the sales and use tax. The additional revenue provided by sections 47A, 47B, and 47C shall not be part of the total state revenue within the meaning of section 17 and 18 of Article 10 of this Constitution. The expenditure of this additional revenue shall not be an expense of state government. Under Section 20 of Article 10 of this Constitution, upon voter approval of this measure in a general election held in 2006, or at a special election to be called by the governor for that purpose, the provisions of this section, 47B and 47A, shall be reauthorized and continue until general election is held in 2016, or at a special election to be called by the governor for that purpose. Every 10 years thereafter, the issue of whether to continue to impose the sales and use tax described in this section shall be resubmitted to the voters for approval. If a majority of voters fail to approve the continuance of such sales and use tax, section 47A, 47B, and 47C shall be terminated at the end of the second fiscal year after the last election is held. Okay, so let's go up to 47A. 47A, sales and use tax. Sorry, I'll make sure to get that highlighted for everybody here. This one's actually got a little bit of distance to it, so we'll do it kind of in sections. Okay, 47A, sales and use tax levied for soil and water conservation for the state parks, distribution of park sales tax fund to counties, propose limitations. For the purpose of providing additional monies to be expended and used by the Department of Natural Resources through the state soil and water districts commission, as defined in section 278.070 RSM, for the saving of the soil and water of this state, for the conservation of the protective power of Missouri agricultural land and by the Department of Natural Resources through the division resemble for the state park systems for the acquisition, development, maintenance, and operation of state parks and state historic sites in accordance with Chapter 253 RSM. And for the admission of laws pertaining thereto. In addition, sales tax of 1/10% is hereby levied and imposed upon all sellers for privilege of selling tangible personal property or rendering taxable services and retail in this state upon the sales and services which now are or hereafter are listed and set forth in, and except as to the amount of tax subject to the provisions of and to be collected as provided in the sales tax law, and subject to the rules and regulations promulgated in connection therewithin. And an additional use tax of 1/10% is levied and imposed for the privilege of storing, using, and or consuming within this state any article or of tangible personal property as set forth and provided in the compensating use tax law, and except as the amount of the tax subject to the provisions of and to be collected as provided in the compensating use tax law, subject to the rules and regulations promulgating in connection therewithin. In addition, monies deposited in the State Parks Sales Tax Fund pursuant to the provision of Section 47B of this article shall be apportioned to make payments to counties for a period of 5 years for the unimproved value of land, for distribution to appropriate political subdivisions as payment in lieu of real property taxes, for privately owned land acquired by Department of Natural Resources for park purposes after July 1st, 1985, in such amounts as determined by a portion but in no event shall such amounts be more than the amount of property tax imposed by political subdivisions at the time the department acquired or acquires such land. Section 47B. Come on. Disbursement of revenue purposes. 50% of the monies arise from the additional sales and use tax provided for in Section 47A thereof shall be deposited in the Soil and Water Sales Tax Fund, and 50% shall be deposited in the State Parks Sales Tax Fund. And the monies in both funds shall be expended pursuant to appropriation by the General Assembly and used by the State Soil and Water Districts Commission and the Department of Natural Resources for the purpose set forth in Section 47A and for no other purpose. Okay, so now let's get to Article 10. Check our page that we need to go to real quick. Alright, Article 10 starts at page 146 of this. Sorry if you hear my mouse squeaking. I've been scrolling a lot lately. Okay, and we were looking for sections 17, 18, and 20. Section 6. Right, so section 17 of Article 10. As used in sections 16 through 24 of Article 10, total state revenues include all general and special revenues, license, and fees, excluding federal funds, as defined in the budget measure of the governor for fiscal year 1980 through 1981. Total state revenues shall exclude the amount of any credits based on actual tax liabilities or the inputted tax components of rental payments, but shall include the amount of any credits not related to actual tax liabilities. 2. Personal income tax of Missourians is the total income received by persons in Missouri from all sources as defined by officially reported by the United States Department of Commerce or its successor agency. General price level means the consumer price index for all urban consumers for the United States or its successor publications, as defined and officially reported by the United States Department of Labor or its successor agency. All right, and as we are on our way to Section 20 of this, this was supposedly updated in 2025. I have recently come across a couple of things in regards to Amendment 2 and Amendment 3 that make me question some of that, but we will get to that in those videos. Section 20, limitation on sales expenses. No expenses of state government shall be incurred in any fiscal year which exceed the sum of revenue limited established in Section 18 and 19 of this article, plus federal funds of any surplus from a previous fiscal year. This stuff just goes on and on back on itself, doesn't it? Anyways, this is Section 19. The revenue limit of Section 18 of this article may be exceeded only if all the following conditions are met. 1. The governor requests the General Assembly to declare an emergency. 2. The request is specific as to the nature of the emergency, the dollar amount of the emergency, and the method by which the emergency will be funded. And 3. The General Assembly thereafter declares an emergency in accordance with the specifics of the governor's request by a majority vote for fiscal year 1981-1982. Thereafter, a 2/3 vote of the members elected to a servicing in each house. The emergency must be declared in accordance with this section prior to incurring any of the expenses which constitute the emergency request. The revenue limit may be exceeded only during the fiscal year for which the emergency is declared. In no event shall any part of the amount representing the refund under Section 18 of this article be the subject of an emergency request. Okay. And as I said, go back to the top here. So we have Constitution, State of Missouri, Constitution of the United States, Dennis Hoskins, Secretary of State, revised January of 2025. It appears as though somebody has not been doing their job. I unfortunately have to add this into the video, folks. Bear with me. I cannot highlight any of this. I'm sorry. Effective date, self-enforceability. The effective date of this amendment shall be July 1st, 1977. All laws inconsistent with this amendment shall no longer remain in full force and effect after July 1st, 1977. All the provisions of sections 43A through C shall be self-enforcing, except that the General Assembly shall adjust brackets for collection of the sales and use taxes. Section 44. Self-enforceability, enabling clause, repealing clause. Sections 40 through 43, inclusive to this article, shall be self-enforcing, and laws not inconsistent therewith may be enacted in aid thereof. All existing laws inconsistent with this article shall no longer remain in force or effect. Section 45. Rules and regulations, filing, review, and the rules and regulations of commission not relating to its organization and internal management shall become effective not less than 10 days after being filed with the Secretary of State as provided in Section 16 of this article. And such final rules and regulations affecting private rights as a judicial and quasi-judicial in nature shall be subject to the judicial review provided in Section 22 of Article 5. Sections 46, distribution of rules and regulations. The Commission shall supply to all persons on request printed copies of its rules and regulations not relating to organizations or internal management. We got natural resources here, Section 47. Natural Resources Department of duties of Department Director, how appointed. The Department of Natural Resources shall be in charge of a director appointed by the governor by and with the advice and consent of the Senate. The department shall administer the program of the state as provided by law relating to environmental control and the conservation and management of natural resources. Oh, I better read this just in case something changed. Because, so from here to here is supposed to be all the stuff that I just finished reading you. But if you look right here in this section, you'll notice that says 2006 and 2016. Is that what the... Hold on, let me check here. You guys get to go along with me on all of this fun stuff here. Okay, yes, Constitution. Does anybody remember what page I was on? Because I don't. But we are looking for Article 4, which starts on page 70. And in Article 4, we need Section 47. That I just previously read to you is the is what is referenced in on the Secretary of State's webpage. What section are we in here? We're in Section 30. Okay, here we are, Section 47. Okay, so that says 2006, and okay, that says 2016. Okay, then. No, oops, sorry, that is the wrong document. This is the one we wanted. All right, proposed amendment to the Constitution of Missouri. This is the SJR 1, which is, if I can find my page with the ballot measures again. And I'm sorry, folks. I will try to cut out some of this if I can. Okay, yes, so SJR 1, 2005. I unfortunately recorded the previous part before I noticed this. So this right here, what I'm about to read, is what this, a yes vote, will keep in place. And it refers specifically to 47C. Resubmits. Alright. Explanation. Matter enclosed in boldface brackets. Okay, so that's just telling us that the boldface stuff, brackets, is in this bill is not enacted and intended to be omitted in the law. Resubmits the Parks and Soils tax to the vote of people starting in 2008. Joint resolution submitting go away, fly. Okay. Joint resolution submitting to the qualified voters of Missouri an amendment repealing Section 47C of Article 4 of the Constitution of Missouri and adopting one new section in lieu of thereof relating to the parks and soil taxes. Sorry, I got a little tickle. Section A, Enforcing Clause 47C, provisions self-enforcing explanations. Try to zoom in here without messing up the text. I hope you guys can read that. I can't really read that in there, but explanation. Okay, where were we? Enforcing provisions of self-enforcing explanations not part of general revenue or expense of state, effective and expiration dates. Be it resolved by the Senate, the House of Representatives concurring therein, that at the next general election to be held in the state of Missouri on Tuesday next following the first Monday, November 2006, or at the special election to be called by the governor for that purpose, there is hereby is submitted to the qualified voters of the state for adoption or rejection the following amendment to Article 4 of the Constitution of the state of Missouri. Section A, Enacting Clause. Section 47C, Article 4, Constitution of Missouri is repealed and a new section adopted in lieu thereof, to be known as Section 47C, to read as follows. And this is very likely exactly what I just read you guys. But we'll read it again just for fun, because this is the document that is attached to the ballot information that is available on the Secretary of State's website. Section 47C, provision self-enforcing exceptions, not part of general revenue or expense of state, effective and expiration dates. The effective date of this amendment shall be November 8th, 1998. All laws inconsistent with this amendment shall no longer remain in full force and effect after the effective date of this section. All of the provisions of sections 47A, 47B, and 47C shall be self-enforcing, except that the General Assembly shall adjust brackets for the collection of the sales and use taxes. The additional revenue provided by the Senate by sections 47A, 47B, and 47C shall not be part of the total state revenue within the meaning of section 17 and 18 of Article 10 of this Constitution. The expenditure of this additional revenue shall not be an expense of state government under section 20 of Article 10 of the Constitution. This section 47A, 47B, and 47C shall terminate after 10 years following the effective date of this amendment. Upon voter approval of this amendment in a general election held in 2006 or at a special election to be called by the governor for that purpose, the provisions of this section 47B and 47A shall be reauthorized and continue until a general election is held in 2016 or at a special election to be called by the governor for that purpose. Every 10 years thereafter, the issue of whether to continue to impose the sales and use tax described in this section shall be resubmitted to the voters for the approval. If a majority of voters fail to approve the continuance of such sales and use tax, section 47A, 47B, and 47C shall terminate at the end of the second fiscal year after the last election was held. Like I said, I didn't notice anything that was different from what I just previously read you. Other than this part was included on it. Probably because they just scanned the entire page. And this is a different entirely, basically. This right here is what the vote is on. This section 47C to keep in place, section 47A, 47B, and the attached disbursement of sales and use taxes. Now, why they scanned it? And like I said, I read this because I have found a couple of discrepancies in my research on Amendment 2 and Amendment 3 between what is said in the attached information on the Secretary of State's website and what is in the supposedly revised in 2025 Constitution. So yeah, the Constitution here, again, like I said, supposedly revised in 2025. I will be digging into why I was only able to find certain parts of it here on Ballotopia for Amendment 2. In particular, this right here. But that's another video. And then again with Amendment 3. I'm sorry, guys. That I bit off a lot to chew on. There we are, ballot measures. But yes, Amendment 2. What is in the full text. What it says it's referenced to. There is not a Section 18B in Article 4 currently in the Constitution that I found listed on this very website. And again, like I said, with Amendment 3, this attached information is not in the Constitution but we will dig into that when we cover Amendment 3. Yeah, so until then. As I said in my research for Amendment 2 and Amendment 3, I have encountered some discrepancies. I did not notice any in this. If anybody has found discrepancies in what is said in this and what should be said in this, make a video. That's all I have to say. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. I have found the information I can find. This guy right here is supposed to be our Secretary of State. Even according to the webpage of the Secretary of State, if I can find that page again. Where is the page with the ballot measures? I have here it is. Yes, ballot measures. Right here. Denny Hoskins, CPA, Missouri Secretary of State. All right, folks. So that's Amendment 1. I hope you guys got some information out of this, found it valuable. Hope it helps you in understanding what you'll be voting for this year. I'll see you in the next video for Amendment 2. I'm going to save Amendment 3 for last, as that one is probably going to get very interesting. And this is supposed to be on the August 4th, 2026 primary election. All right. Have a good evening, a good day, a good afternoon, a good morning, whichever I may be catching you during.